What is up, you sexy YouTube mother lovers? Today we're going to be taking a look at a trigger for the AR-15 that has been a legal accessory to buy in the US for over a year. And so today... FBI, open up! So guys, it looks like the ATF is back on their bullshit. We now have what's being reported as a leaked letter from the ATF, and it does not look good. So of course we're going to be talking about the debacle of the whole forced reset triggers thing, specifically with two companies, WOT, Wide Open Triggers, and Rare Breed Triggers with the FRT, Forced Reset Trigger. Now of course with patent infringement claims and everything, these companies aren't exactly the biggest fan of each other, but right now it really doesn't matter because they were always kind of in the same fight against the ATF, but now more so than ever. So just a little bit of background. So in the past couple weeks, it had been going around that both Wide Open Triggers and Rare Breed firearms had both been raided by the ATF. As it turns out, not true, didn't really happen. It was based on bad intel, even though it did go semi-viral. What was hard for me to tell though is based on the verbiage, okay, they didn't get raided, but it sounded like maybe triggers still got seized. It was kind of hard to figure out. So if you don't know what the FRT is or what a forced reset trigger is, don't worry, I will explain that in a second. According to this leaked ATF document, the ATF has started seizing forced reset triggers from distributors and dealers. This is something I was not expecting at this point, considering that the ATF is still in court with Rare Breed firearms over the FRT in general. You'd think that they would need a hard ruling before they're allowed to go ahead and start confiscating shit, but apparently you'd be wrong.
I can tell you that we've received word from one dealer in Illinois late yesterday afternoon stating that the ATF had paid them a visit, hand-delivered them a cease and desist, and then quote-unquote had taken FRT 15s from them.
So in this video, we're going to dive into what an FRT is, why it's legally not a machine gun as per letter of law, and what this leaked letter says and what it means. We also have an instance of a gun tuber being arrested, which is something I wanted to talk about a little after that as well. But TLDR so far, ATF is back on their shit. Is the ATF making you anxious yet? If so, don't worry, I've got an app for that. And by app, I mean pouch. And by pouch, I mean actually a pouch, Canadiff's CBD pouches. Aside from being an awesome sponsor, Canadiff's is a great way to get CBD without having to worry about testing positive for THC. That way, for gun owners like us or FFL dealers like me, we don't have to worry about the ATF showing up for something else. They've got 5 awesome flavors. I personally like the fresh wintergreen. That's a great masculine way to get 10 milligrams of CBD, chill the fuck out, and not have to worry about rubbing lotion on your skin. Nobody looks cool doing that. Best part is because they're sponsoring with me, if you use code Herrera, you can get 50% off of their swag pack. It's all 5 of their flavors that you get to try, plus an embroidered hat for 35 bucks. So a $70 value for $35, plus you get to support an awesome company who supports videos like this. So if you want to click the links down in the description and in the pinned comment, remember to use code Herrera and support the guys who support us. We appreciate their sponsorship of the channel. Back to the ATF. So before we delve into what the letter itself says, I think it's important we give a real quick, basic, brief explanation of what a forced reset trigger is. Let's face it, everybody wants to be able to shoot full auto. It's really fucking cool, right? Unfortunately, because the NFA sucks, not everybody gets to do that, or at least own one. Basically because in order to have one, you either need to be specially licensed like I am, or you have to buy a pre-86 transferable, which are expensive as balls. So basically, if you're not an actual FFL dealer or you're not loaded, it's very hard for the average civilian to be able to legally own a full auto. We've had things come around in the past, like the slide fires and stuff like that, which I think are now still banned. I'm kind of unclear about that. You know how these things go. After a while, ATF rulings are about as transparent as a glass of milk. Also goes without saying, I just think the NFA is pretty fucking lame. If you also think we should repeal the NFA, go ahead and subscribe. All my homies hate the NFA. Anyhow, one of the newer iterations of trying to allow civilians to have something that kind of mimics the action of full auto fire is the forced reset trigger. Do I have an AR-15 here? I actually realized I don't have an AR-15 in my house, so I'll use the SCAR instead. So of course with semi-auto, flip it into, this is clear for the record. Semi-auto, you pull the trigger, gun reciprocates, and then you release the trigger, and it resets, and then you're ready to pull the trigger again. What the FRT does is when the bolt carrier group reciprocates after a round is fired, it boosts your finger forward slightly past the point of reset, so that when it comes back forward, you're ready to pull it again. So if you consistently have your finger pulling in this direction, it will cause you to pull the trigger again. And then magic happens. So Brandon, is this a machine gun? Well, plenty of folks at the ATF seem to think so, but I can read the law, so I know that it technically is not. The dreaded NFA itself is what actually clears the FRT of being a machine gun. The National Firearms Act defines machine gun, quote, to include any combination of parts designed and intended for use in converting a weapon to shoot automatically more than one shot without manual reloading. Important part here, by a single function of the trigger. Meaning on a full auto, if I have it set to full auto, I hold the trigger down, and that is the single function of the trigger that I need to be able to fire multiple rounds without reloading. One function of the trigger. The FRT is definitely a loophole, but it does, by the letter of law, make it not a machine gun because it's causing the action of the gun to reset the trigger, meaning that you can easily pull it again while still maintaining rearward pressure on the trigger. That's why it was made. But now, of course, if you get good with the FRT, it's really not hard to make it look like basically to function essentially like it was a machine gun, which is why the ATF has absolutely been shitting themselves over it. So let's take a look at the letter. I believe this was originally broke by GOA or Gun Owners of America, but I obtained this letter, a copy of the letter itself, from Mr. Guns and Gear. To all field offices. Good afternoon. Attached are the cease and desist letters and the FAT-D. Yes, the ATF's Firearm and Ammunition Technology Division is literally called FAT-D. And the FAT-D Technical Bulletin referring to the rare breed and wide open triggers, FRT trigger. You'll also find C&D, cease and desist, instructions prepared by CC's office. The C&D letters and the PC statements have been cleared by the OCC. There are two versions of the C&D letter, one for companies that manufacture and distribute, FFLs, and one for the distributors/retailers, FFL and non-FFL. Please work within your division counsel to fill in the highlighted areas with the appropriate information. The part that bothers me the most is the to all field offices part in the very beginning of this email or letter. That means this was sent to ATF field offices all across the country. Now this next part's fucking crazy. As discussed, please be prepared to take possession of any documents and FRTs the manufacturer/distributor retailer offers to surrender. They may choose to abandon the items, in which case ask them to complete a consent to forfeiture of property and waiver notice. If the manufacturer/retailer refuses to abandon the items, please take custody of the items and seize them for forfeiture so that they can be properly noticed. So one, I would love to know what kind of documentation they're talking about, whether or not that is referring to the people that they've sold it to. Now I'm just going to say right now, if you are a manufacturer, FFL, retailer, whoever, who voluntarily turns in your customers' information to the ATF, you are a piece of shit. But the second part of this basically says that as far as the possession of the FRTs go, you don't have a fucking choice. You can consent to the forfeiture or they will seize it from you. Additionally, FMS will be collecting the number of FRTs recovered and a number of defendants found in possession of these devices. Now here's the especially scary part. So the ATF is now seizing property from private individuals, meaning the owners of these FFLs, distributors, what have you. Once they're finished with that, is it such a stretch to say that they're going to go after just owners of the product? Average everyday civilians who just happened to buy one or ordered one online or whatever, put it in their AR, because God knows how many of these things are now in circulation. I really hope this document isn't correct, because if so, this is the biggest hard-on for anything in recent memory that the ATF has had, that they're willing to actually go to people and start seizing things. So what do you guys think? Do you think that the letter's real? And if so, do you think that they're going to start coming after private individuals next? I wish I could say it was a stretch, but I don't know, man. Curious to hear your thoughts. And also, just because I did want to bring it up at some point, and this seemed like a perfect fucking video to do it, at time of recording, just a little bit ago, I started hearing that CRS Firearms, another gun tuber, got arrested. More specifically, he was arrested for the possession of one of those auto key cards, if you remember that floating around anywhere on the internet. It's basically like a joke kind of gimmick thing where it's a little key card that has a disassembled, non-machined auto sear on it, that if you machined it out or whatever, you could theoretically construct an auto sear. It was kind of like a gag thing, right? Apparently, some people up top did not agree, or they just didn't think the gag was funny. Shout out to Reno May for doing a good job of breaking that story. I genuinely don't think I would have heard about it otherwise. I hope everything works out for him, man, because that is such a weird thing to get popped for. Yeah, I know we normally try to do like real funny content here, and I like making you guys laugh, and I think it's I don't know. I think it's kind of cool that some of you guys think that I'm a little funny occasionally. I think videos like this are important too when there's something that is actually happening in the community that is going to impact all of us if we don't shut it the fuck down. So just remember to keep an eye on this and fight it at every fucking level that you can. Back great gun organizations at GOA, FPC, NAGR. Notice I left one out. And yeah, sorry I couldn't have brought a better, funnier video for you guys this week, but I thought it was important, so here we are. Anyhow, I hope we return to our normal flow of content in the next few days, and hopefully nothing fucking crazy happens between now and then. Fingers crossed. But either way, I appreciate you guys staying to the end of the video, and as always, I'll see you sexy YouTube mother lovers in the next video. Thanks.
Fuel is my obsession to make the perfect weapon, like Rasputin's rise to the top.
So in the past few weeks, it was going around that wide open triggers and rare breed triggers were both being rated by the ATF. Both had been, Anyhow, guys, hopefully returning to our normal flow of content starting in a couple of days. I appreciate you guys sticking around to the end of video.